in Washington is James Norton, a Republican strategist and former senior official at the Department of Homeland Security. Good day to you. Do you agree with that assessment then, that the revelations we've had today actually put President Trump and his close team in the clear if this is all that Robert Mueller can come up with so far?
You know, I think that the Trump administration, while Donald Trump almost a year ago next week won a pretty resounding victory, in the 2016 election, the administration has really struggled since day one to really get its footing here in D.C. They haven't really been able to establish any momentum, starting with the travel ban. And so it's kind of been a constant up and down all the way through. And so I think despite where or how or the types of charges that were filed today, there's no doubt that it's a political body blow to the administration in terms of throwing it off its message, throwing it off track, once again, having to spend cycles trying to explain away what exactly this is and this means. So this is significant. There's no doubt about it. And I think, with these special counsels, this isn't the first one we've had in Washington in the last 30 years. You just kind of don't know which path it's going to take or how long it's going to take. Yes, a lot happened today, but I think now we're going to be kind of in the hurry up and wait phase, as we say here in D.C., and kind of see what
So a body blow, but two different issues really today. Should we deal with Paul Manafort first of all, better known, I suppose, sacked from his role as campaign chief? Do today's charges come as a surprise to you at all?
I think that not having familiar with the day-to-day activities, I think that the issue of foreign influence is certainly a big one here in Washington. While it's not unusual for, political consulting firms or lobbyist organizations to represent foreign countries here in D.C., it's certainly getting a lot more scrutiny, especially after the 2016 election. So I think if you do have those type of ties or relationships or things like that in D.C., certainly it is going to get a lot of scrutiny. So I think from that perspective, it isn't necessarily a surprise. The Trump campaign, we'll say, was a different model in 2016, where it was made up kind of a few different people along the way, many different campaign managers and things like that. And so not traditional in the sense of what we've seen for other campaign apparatuses and kind of how it went. So, again, I think we're going to have to see what happens. But again, this is a significant political issue for the Trump administration. Also, coming on the fact that, just last week, Senator Jeff Flake and Senator Jeff Corker, both big Republicans in the Senate, kind of stepped away from President Trump quite loudly and made big statements about how they didn't necessarily agree with how he was governing. So I think this also hurts him as well.
But in terms of Manafort, was it an error of judgment to bring in these people that perhaps should have been properly vetted? If you look at the money laundering allegations alone, altogether apparently at least $75 million, according to the indictment, in payments from Ukraine flowed through the accounts. And now we're hearing that Paul Manafort spent, I'm just reading, $1 million on 8 rugs in 2 years, more than $1.3 million on clothes from shops in Beverly Hills. He had homes in Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Hamptons, Arlington, Virginia, and elsewhere. Should alarm bells have been ringing like that into such a senior position into this campaign team?
Well, again, I think Donald Trump has always prided himself as somebody that, brings in the best and brightest. And certainly when he was going to take over the presidency, he said he was going to bring in the best and brightest. So I think this kind of is troubling in the sense that it doesn't really speak to what he said he wanted to do or was going to do. And I think that there wasn't really a lot of vetting going on, is my assumption, in the campaign. And it was kind of put together almost on the back of a napkin here. And as they were bringing people in and out, and it wasn't really much of an organization or vetting really going on. I mean, we just had the Health and Human Services Secretary resign not that long ago. So there are a lot of bad marks here right now, in the administration and looking back, obviously, to those that were involved in the campaign. So certainly some troubling things, definitely.
Of bigger concern, perhaps, is the news that one of Trump's advisors, George Papadopoulos, has admitted lying about his links to Russia, specifically about the timing of meetings that he had with alleged go-betweens for Russia. Should we be asking questions now about who he reported back to, who he passed this information on to?
I'm sure the special counsel, as we saw today, certainly has a lot going on. We're learning more, it seems like every second now. And, I actually think it's kind of amazing. This is a town that isn't able to keep a lot of secrets, and a lot of these things seem to be well under wraps as they're running an investigation along, which is, should build a lot of confidence bipartisanly, in town. I think they're probably going through some sort of process to kind of rebuild contacts and, who was talking to who and whether or not there was some sort of impropriety. We've got, House Intelligence Committee investigating this week. There's another round, I think, of people coming up to visit them. So there's, still all sorts of investigations that are occurring, not just at the special counsel's office, that are trying to rebuild and do some facts finding in terms of, what is the influence and what does that mean in terms of the current administration and their ability to govern. And I think that's really, what it's going to come down to. Can they govern in this current environment?
We'll see what happens next, shall we? James Norton, Republican strategist. Good to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.